Welcome. We have, I believe, all of our board members for WAVE in attendance today and a number of villages here today. One thing that's important for me to note is when we get to the place of elections, and I'll do a brief reminder then, that our members are the organizations, your villages. So when it comes time to vote, if you could please have one individual from each of the member organizations place the vote. And that voting will be by raising of hands, literal or Zoom hand for this. And voting is a majority of those members in attendance. But first, welcome. And we're going to start out with just an idea of where we've been and where we've come to in the past year. So, our 2025 highlights. Here we have our conference. Just by a show of hands, how many people were here at this year's conference? Beautiful. It was our largest conference yet. And we've learned a lot from the survey that you participated in if you attended the conference. And we're already talking about this next year's conference. So if there's something pressing that you want to make sure is part of the conference, a great idea you want to share, please go ahead and reach out. Kim will be all over that. And we are looking at meeting for this year's preparations probably within this next month. So thank you for that. I think we've reached about 190 attendees. And the feedback from this meeting, from this conference, was that people very much appreciated being able to walk away with a firm idea of how that session would absolutely serve them in the work that they're doing to support their villages. So thank you for that feedback, and we're always learning. So Kim, if you could go ahead to the next slide. So the other thing that I wanted to share that is just an understanding of who we are as WAVE, and that we are also growing, which I'll leave to some future conversations, because WAVE right now represents villages in Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia, and West Virginia, and that there is also interest within Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey to be able to be part of an organization that's a regional organization. So what you have come to know as WAVE, we will be growing, and we will be growing an invitation to be able to become part of a larger community of villages and supporting villages in formation and operation to do the best that they can by their membership. And currently we're aware of 79 villages in our region that are established or in development. But when we look at this, we still have too many areas without village representation. And that's one of the challenges and one of the opportunities that we are going to be looking to work with, anywhere from the Village to Village Network to other regional organizations and village service organizations, to see what we can do to increase the opportunity for villages as more people to be able to have a village community. Have any volunteers to do that. And then if we could go ahead and move on, Kim. And there is a little bit of an echo or feedback I think somebody might have there. So just a view of some of the programs that we've had in addition to our peer-to-peer programming, our mutual aid programming. We've had programs in generative AI, financial accounting for villages was very popular. The WISE Connect presentation, and VSN stepping forward and very popular for the village newsletter. And then of course our conference. And just for you to know, if you can't copy this right here on the page, when you go to our website, you'll be able to see our archived material. There's a great deal of material there for you to be able to access at any point in time. The other thing that I wanted, and I think it's the next slide, Kim. So nothing that WAVE does alone, and that's intentional, because of the idea that our organization, more and more we see how we can benefit by being, as we say, a convener and connector and facilitator for all the good and all of the knowledge that exists within all of our member villages, and how to bring that together so that we can benefit from each other, that we can strengthen each other, and that we can continue to grow the village movement regionally. And one of the ways in which we've been supporting that is with the Virginia Villages Collective. Carol is a member of our board of directors, and the collective has implemented a statewide program in Virginia to reduce the risk of social isolation among older Virginians, expanding access to village supports and services, and the Aging Well with Virginia Villages is funded by the Virginia Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services, and it's focusing on expanding the capacity of existing villages and the creation of new villages with greater representation throughout Virginia. And WAVE has stepped forward to serve as the fiscal sponsor for the Virginia Village Collective's effort. So we're very, we're learning a lot, and a wonderful group of women stepping forward to make this happen, and very proud for that partnership. Kim, if you would please. So coming in 2026, these are just some highlights. As you know, as you've come to understand with WAVE, there are definitely going to be opportunities for learning, for exchange, and learning by working with each other. Too often, I think that we look to the outside for knowledge when it's looking within those villages across the region for amazing work. And we'll see that in our Founders Award presentation later. And we're going to have the opportunity for greater or in-depth presentations by our 2025 Founders Awards coming up in February and March. And that's an opportunity, if you want to figure out how to make this happen for your village, what you see later today, that you'll have the opportunity to sit down with these award winners and work through some of your questions. And then the opportunity to apply for the 2026 Finishing Strong Award. We're very fortunate to be supported in that again for this year. And of course, our annual in-person conference. And I think our Finishing Strong is next. Is that right? So our 2026 Finishing Strong Award. So applications coming up very soon, February 1st through April 15th. And you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Because Chris Palmer and Gail Shearer have stepped forward to fund this opportunity again. And they're going to be offering an information session with Chris Palmer on February 12th at 10 a.m. So please mark your calendars now, and that'll be on our website shortly. And the idea for those who are not familiar with the Finishing Strong Award is to encourage conversations about end-of-life issues and expand the long-term impact of our area villages and supporting people, their members, through conversations on end-of-life issues. And the programs that each of you develop are programs that can absolutely serve as a model across the nation. So you're not only doing for your village, but you're creating opportunity for other villages, both regionally and beyond. So please attend the information session. Don't be in a frame of mind of, oh, we can't do this, because you absolutely can. So you can once again go to our website for more information. So the first thing that we have is we have an amazing opportunity to welcome a great set of nominees, candidates for our board of directors. But we first want to start with thanking one of our board members who's stepping away at the end of her term. Here's a photo of most of us, and that is Marianne. Marianne Long has served as our board secretary. She's been just an amazing support for WAVE, an active contributor at all levels, and a great representative of Virginia villages and her Seaville village. And just what I'd like to do is just give a hand offer a hand of congratulations and thanks to Marianne Long. And Marianne, if you're on the screen, just if you could wave for people. I can't see everyone, but maybe others can see you. Thank you. And if you ever have the opportunity to return, please just let us know. And then what we have now is just to remind our membership of who's on our board of directors. And we have a number of members who are in current terms, looking at current members in Washington, D.C. And we have Morgan and Ava and Leo, and you can see the villages that they represent. The DC Villages Collaborative, DuPont Circle Village, and Mount Pleasant Village. And then in Maryland, we have Doug, Elizabeth, and Arkia, and they are representing Silver Spring Village, Bethesda Metro Area Village, and Neighborhood Companions in Baltimore. So they are all midterm, so they don't require any action. And then we have in Virginia, we have Carol and Wendy representing the Virginia Villages Collective and Arlington Neighborhood Village. And those are the board members that, once again, require no action. There are two current board members that are coming up for new terms. I'm one of those, Layla Riazi. My home village is Cheverly Village, and Jim Sanders from the village in Howard. So this means that in the slate that we're offering, these two members we are putting forward for their next terms. But we are also extremely fortunate to have 4 new candidates on our slate for the 2026 Board of Directors. We have Trish Evans, and you can see that she's the facilitator for the city of Rockville, Maryland, for Villages, and also co-founder of the Village Support Network. Next, we have Nicole Furness, and you see lead consultant with the DC Villages Collaborative, and also a founder and CEO of Roots Consulting Group. We next have Rommel Jones, who will be going into the incoming director. He's already been with Goodwin Living at Home, but he will be the director of Goodwin Living at Home shortly. And Rich Sider, who is with Valley Village in Virginia, and I believe he's currently secretary of Valley Village in Virginia. And we will have their bios in greater detail on our website, and we'll also send out an email follow-up. So you will have the opportunity to learn a lot more about them. So what we have here is our full slate of candidates for the 2026 Board of Directors, these 6 people, 2 seeking an additional term and 4 seeking their first term. So with that, if we could pull down the slide for a minute, Kim, if that's okay. And this is where, once again, I remind, so all organizations who are a member of WAVE have the opportunity to vote, but we ask that only 1 representative from each organization take part in the vote. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to accept the slate of 2026 Board of Directors.
So moved.
Elizabeth with a motion and a second.
Second.
Was that Leo?
Yes.
Leo with the second. And then among all members, all those in favor of the 2026 WAVE Board of Directors slate. Okay, I'm going to the second screen. Any against? I see no hands raised. Kim, if you could help me double check. And any abstentions? I see no abstentions. So thank you. By universal vote of the members present, we have accepted the 2026 Board of Directors slate. So congratulations. And what I would like to offer is for the four new members, if they would like the opportunity to just about a minute to share anything. And as I said, you'll find out a lot more about them later. So starting with, I see Rommel, if you would please, if there's anything that you'd like to say in just a minute or so.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. My name is Rommel Jones. I am currently the manager of member experience for Goodwin Living at Home and will soon be the director of Goodwin Living. I'm deeply committed in supporting older adults in aging with dignity, with independence, with a strong community connection. And so through my professional work in care coordination, member engagement, program development. I see firsthand how critical it is for us to networks just like Wave, to network with other villages to help older adults thrive in place as they age. And so I would be honored to serve on Wave and to contribute my experience, to contribute, strengthen some relationships, and to help really advance the innovations and equitable services that support older adults. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rommel. And then from there, yes, I see Nicole.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Furness. I've had a chance to work with some of you, collaborate, and interact with some of you, and looking forward to more of that as I join the board. I started my service to villages as the executive director of the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village, and that is based in a community in Northeast DC. So I served as the executive director there, and then I have since then, started consulting for other villages and supporting their needs in various different ways. I'm currently working with DC Villages Collaborative to support them as they kind of enter into this next phase as a 501(c)(3 and building out their organization. My time in finding the villages has been a combination of my background in policy. So I've worked in the federal government, I've worked in consulting. But my most recent kind of career path was in housing policy, and that's where I came to be familiar with aging in community, aging in place, universal design, ensuring that people have access to what they need as they age, and whatever kind of housing capacity they're in. And so we all know how important that is in the work that we do. And I'm excited to bring my background and that experience to the villages and to the board. I've also liked to consult and offer collaborative ideas and problem solving based on my corporate background. And so a lot of the work I do with villages is really about operational optimization, using resources to the best of our abilities, collaborating and finding coalitions that can really support the mission to ensure that these villages, no matter what community they're in, can thrive and survive and support their communities. And so that's a little bit about me, and looking forward to working and getting to know all of you a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Nicole. And then do I see Patricia?
I am here.
Yes,
I am here.
okay.
Thank you so much for having me. I consider it an honor. I've been in the village world for about 9 years, learning something new every day. And my favorite part of my work as the coordinator for the city of Rockville is the connections that I get to see every day, both locally, nationally. I like to meet people. I like to hear their stories. And one of the strengths I hope to bring to Washington Area Village Exchange is that ability to get messaging out because the more you talk, the more people hear, the more people want to connect. And I look forward to using those skills that I have. That is my background. I was in television and film production for many, many years. I transitioned into senior healthcare transitions for a brief time. And now being community-based, I get to see organizations in these teeny tiny, as you all did, teeny tiny little conversations in kitchens and living rooms and blossom into full on. I've also had the opportunity to work with the Village Support Network and its affiliates and see that organization grow exponentially and thrive exponentially. And I look forward to bringing what I learned from them and their experience to the organization and the movement at large.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Trish. And Rich Sider. Rich, yes, I see you.
Yeah, I'm Rich Sider from Harrisonburg, Virginia. I got involved in our local village here, basically because I wanted an alternative to entering a continuum care retirement community, and happy to have the opportunity to support the broader movement and hopefully encourage the expansion of this network. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Rich. So there you have a brief introduction, and we will continue to do more. And these new board members will be joining up for their first board meeting this Monday. So work begins right away. So, welcome. And now we will move into the plenary portion, looking at our Founders Award winners. So if you were at the conference, we had a very truncated, introduction of the Founders Award winners because, boy, traffic did a number on all those attending, and there was a delay. So we really wanted to give them an opportunity to step forward and give you more of a taste of the work that they've done that's led to their recognition, and for you to be in a place, the rest of the members of listening and seeing if this is something that you want to personalize for your village. And as I said, there will be an opportunity in the next couple of months to be able to sit down for a longer period of time with each of the award winners to find out more about their programs and to have a little bit of hand holding and looking at how to make that happen for your village. We're extremely fortunate to have Neighborhood Companions, Cleveland and Woodley Park Village, and Valley Village as our Founders Award winners. And the first presentation, I believe, will be Neighborhood Companions. So
thank you, Layla.
Fiona, please go ahead. Oh, Arkia,
Thank you,
please go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and I'm excited to work with our new board members as a current board member. This presentation is regarding Neighborhood Companions. We started an initiative back in 2024 called Second Sunday Suppers. And this picture here is right from one of our recent suppers in November. We're giving out food. So you can go to the next slide. So how it all began, it really began from WAVE. I can attribute this initiative. It was really inspired by the 2024 Founders Award. The Cleveland and Woodley Park Village did a presentation, and I saw what they were doing in their community, and I said, you know what? I think this could work in my community with a few twists. Because there's such a need in my community and all communities for in-person gathering, really because of, COVID has really, really made it more apparent. And so we were able to use the model that Cleveland and Woodley Park Village did and create our own Sunday Supper series. And so we were able to get grants from the Healthy Aging Grant from the state of Maryland. The United Way of Central Maryland was very key in helping us with some grant funding last year. We are the community. If everyone knows what happened to the Francis Scott Key Bridge that collapsed over now almost a year and almost 2 years now, I guess. We are the community that was right by that impact. And so the Baltimore Community Foundation had a Key Bridge grant that we applied for to get some funding for that. And then over the summer, we connected with the University of Baltimore. They had a human services class that needed a summer project. And so for our August dinner, they were responsible, that was their summer project, to fundraise for the Sunday dinner, to plan it. We, Neighborhood Companions, did bring the volunteers, but they also had to do a little presentation. So they did a presentation on scamming and made it fun and exciting, where participants got prizes. So that was a really nice event, because we had 5 students that were part of that program, and one of the students ended up being an intern for us last fall. So it was a double benefit. And then we've had donations from the community that have supported the supper. So next slide. So why Sunday suppers matter? They, bring neighbors together for fellowship, food, and friendship. It reduces loneliness and supports emotional well-being for older adults. And I have to say, we try to have one every month. I didn't have one last February because it fell on Super Bowl Sunday, and I didn't have one in December because we had some other activities going on. And people were like upset with me because we didn't have the Sunday supper. I mean, they really look forward to the consistency of the dinner. And I imagine, there might be, the week of that Sunday supper, that might be the only time that that person might have gotten out the house. So it's been really nice. I am also the Girl Scout troop leader in my community. So as you can see, there's you see one little girl in the picture. She's one of my faithful Girl Scout members, and she comes pretty much every second Sunday. She thinks it's her job to come to the second Sunday suppers to help. So we've really been able to encourage that intergenerational connection. It also helps identify residents who might need other assistance. We have, because of this organic Sunday supper, we have been able to identify some people who need transportation. And it's been a real neighbor to neighbor connection, because there's people who come to the Sunday supper and bring someone who maybe can't drive. So it's been really nice. And then it strengthens our community pride and togetherness in our community. Next slide. So there are some barriers. The dinners are expensive because I do get them catered just because of ease. And there are some transportation barriers for some older adults without rides, which we've tried to combat. And then there is some difficulty reaching isolated seniors. And so what I have done to kind of overcome that barrier is just consistency. And just, I had one particular senior who just, every month I would just tell her, come on out, come on out. And I think it took her like 5 or 6 times for her to, finally come to a second Sunday supper. And she's, been multiple times since then. And then managing event logistics with limited staff capacity is just myself and 2 part-time folks. So, it can be with everything else that we have going on that we do for our village, managing logistics can be difficult. But I would say the benefits outweigh any of the barriers that we have done for this initiative. Next slide. So celebrating our progress and looking ahead, we've had steady growth in attendance and community participation. I would say in October of 2024, our first dinner, I think we had like 20 older adults. And in June, we had our biggest Sunday supper. It was more than 80 people attended. It was our local Baltimore County Department of Aging allowed us to use our senior center on a Sunday when they're normally closed to host a dinner on a Sunday. And we had a jazz band and we had an ice cream truck. And so I think that was the draw to get so many people in because we had an actual activity. But we've been able to, this movement, we've been able to form partnerships with a local hospital that is our closest hospital, Johns Hopkins Bayview Hospital. We've been able to get 3 of the local churches to host at their fellowship halls. And then recently this year, we just had our second Sunday supper 2 weeks ago. We partnered with Sage Health, which is an organization that's a primary care for-profit organization that helps older adults with primary care physician services and other things. And so they paid for half of the food. So that was really nice. And then we also had a local sorority that donated all of the desserts and also brought volunteers. So it's been my focus this year is really to bring in other folks, like partnerships to people I think recognize how great these events are and they want to participate. John Hopkins Bayview has been very, very nice. And as far as like donating desserts at one in October, bringing volunteers, and just supporting the organization. So we're going to continue to reach out to partners to help with that. So we've done surveys. We ask participants if they've come to 3 or more to fill out the short survey. And we've gotten really positive feedback. The people feel connected, they feel valued, they feel uplifted. It's, built our visibility in the community. And again, like I said, we're going to, try to do more presentations and collaborations and bringing more information in this unique way. Food has brought people together. I would say also will make a point that the community that I live in, we're in a food desert. So we lost our grocery store in 2018. So, I feel like I'm touching a lot of points by having this dinner. Next slide. I think that's it. Well, those are just some photos from different events, a hodgepodge.
Thank you, Arkia. Would you be willing to take a few questions?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to start out with, and it's not so much a question, but an ask, if this comes to your mind to share. You mentioned about some of the other connections that can come from getting people to partake in the second Sunday suppers. Is there a particular story of through the second Sunday suppers, someone, a member that you've been able to connect with or has gone on to have benefits beyond the second Sunday supper for that individual?
I think I get direct feedback, from the dinners. I don't know if there's one particular story. Like I mentioned, there was one particular older adult. She literally was held hostage in her house and like wouldn't come out. And literally it took me like 6 months to finally get her out the house to come to a second Sunday supper. And now she's like, coming to everything.
She's a regular?
A regular. A regular to not just the Sunday suppers, but other events. She
Yes.
was mainly a transportation client, only, me picking her up and, one-on-one, but now she's like signed up for the senior center. She's been part of our tech program. She's done things for me for social media, videos. She really, and, she's connected with other people that she had not connected with previously. So, I feel like that's a success story. But I really, people every month, like before I even get the flyer out, they're like, sign me up for the next dinner, or, when's the next dinner, and so it's just really nice to get that direct feedback. I was at a funeral last Friday, and one of our attendees that comes every month. She even made a comment about the sorority being at the dinner and how nice it was and how she really enjoyed the sorority being there and the volunteers. So it's just been really nice. I'm just so grateful for Wave for, having this opportunity and sharing the idea, because I literally stole it.
I really appreciate what you shared about not only did the one lady become a regular, but she also was able to contribute, and what comes with that. That at least by my experience, and it sounds like by yours, is extraordinary beneficial not only to your village but also to her. So that idea, when we talk about addressing social isolation, it's also creating a sense of agency that you are not just in a place to receive, but you're also in a place to contribute. So thank you very much, Arkia. Other questions? And Kim, if you could help me see people, and feel free to just speak up if you have a question. If we have no other questions, thank you very much, Arkia. And once again, Neighborhood Companions will be presenting in the next couple of months for you to be able. Oh, I see, Trish, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say how inspired I am at this. I heard your story at a WAVE conference, I guess in 2024, the last one I was able to attend. And I was so inspired, mostly about how it came from an idea and to see it grow into this. It's incredible. So thank you. Thank you so much for your inspiration.
And so that brings us to our next winners of the Cleveland and Woodley Park Village, who you are back again, having created an opportunity in the past year that then gave birth to Neighborhood Companions. So I believe we have Frank. Frank, are you going to go ahead and present?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Great. Well, first, let me just congratulate Arkia for taking a humble little idea here in Cleveland Woodley Park and making it happen in a way that works for her community. And having 80 people at a dinner is no small undertaking. So my hat's off to you. Really, really warms my heart to know that it's worked elsewhere, and it's an idea that hopefully will spread. So let me talk to you a little bit about our project, The Faces of Aging. And one thing that I want to highlight is that this was really a great way for us to receive funding from a totally different funding source than we'd ever thought about as a way of getting a message out about the power of people, older adults living in our community, and trying to break down some of those stereotypes. So we received funding from Humanities DC, and we did that first in 2023 and received funding for the collection of oral interviews. And we had 8 people, those people that are listed or shown here. We collected their oral interview using volunteers, and they also volunteered as the narrator of their stories. And these were stories that were about an hour to an hour and a half long. And they focused on their lives, how they got to Washington, D.C. and Cleveland Woodley Park Village, and what it was like to age in our community and with support from the village. Next slide. So after we had those 8 oral interviews, luckily Humanities DC said that there was another RFP called Beyond the Archives of how to take those oral interviews and make a public display. And so that's what we did. And I'm going to explain to you the 2 exhibits that we did, one at a library and one at a school, and then how we tied that to the Older Americans Month in May and made a big splash during that time frame with the mayor and also a series of programs. And we're hoping in the near future that we will take all of this and still keep it alive and bring it into new places such as the DC Senior Wellness Centers. Next slide. So this was our dramatic display on Connecticut Avenue in downtown DC. These are vinyl clings that go on the windows. And we changed the title from The Faces of Aging to We Are Your Neighbors, because we really wanted people to know who lived in this neighborhood. And the big feeling that we got from many of the narrators here was that they had been there forever in their neighborhood, but all the people around them had moved. That they knew for decades, and new families moved in, and it was wonderful, but they didn't get out as much. And so they didn't feel like they were as connected to the neighborhood as they once had been, even though they'd lived there since, for example, the 1960s. And so it was really important for us to introduce to the community that these are the people in your neighborhood, even if you see them less than you see the young families with kids. But we didn't want to stop here. We knew that this was going to grab people's attention, and it did. You could see the cars slowing down. But really, this was what was the way to grab people's attention in order to get them to go inside to the library to learn more about these people. Next slide. So on the library window next to the door, we introduced the idea of the exhibit of, we are your neighbors, and that it was Older Americans Month, and that we were trying to amplify the portraits in order to break down some of the stereotypes of older adults and invite them to learn a little bit more about their neighbors. Next slide. And this is a picture of the inside of the library, which is where we really wanted the action to take place. And this was a dramatic display that actually was used for a different exhibit, and the library gave it to us and we repurposed it, which I loved. And so for each of the 8 people, we had a specific slide or exhibit board for them, and they connected together. We also, in order to make this interesting, we also had pictures of the community from the previous decades of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so it was just visually very interesting for folks to walk around and to see, and they could recognize the street that they were on, but from decades ago. I should say that we worked with this wonderful artist, film creator, Kristen Adair, who helped us conceive of these and also to actually make them. And she and I put these together in my garage. But it was really fabulous working with her. And it was a requirement of the grant to work with somebody who had a humanities background. Next slide. So this is an example of one person, Linda's panel. And what we tried to do was collect information and photographs about the narrator's life. I say narrator because they told their story, so that's in humanities speak, that's what it means, but these are all of our members. So in Linda's case, she had been a civil rights attorney, and she also worked with her church in order to get an elevator installed because they previously were carrying her up the stairs, as you can see there. And then the great powerful story here was that in the bottom right, you'll see that is Linda, who's actually now a volunteer to someone else, Rochelle, who's sitting on the stairs. And Linda actually calls in and orders groceries for Rochelle. So, they're helping each other and being volunteers. It's just such a powerful story. What's really great about this panel, that what we tried to do was to highlight just enough information to get people interested, to then use the QR code, which then took them to our website, and they could actually hear in Linda's voice a 5 to 6 minute audio of her telling her own life story. So that was a real challenge, to take an hour or an hour and a half of the original oral history and to boil it down to just that short snippet. But we did it, and it told a fascinating story in each and every instance. Next slide. This is the second exhibit that we did on a fence for a school, and there were actually 12, I think 10 to 12 panels. And this was actually our original idea, that people would come upon the exhibit, and they wouldn't have to schedule in order to go to see a visit or want to see it, but they would just be walking. And so we were really pleased that we were able to also do the school exhibit, because that's what we wanted originally. The challenge was finding the space. So we couldn't find enough empty storefronts or storefronts that the owners would let us use in order to have these panels displayed. And so that's why we went to the library, and they said yes, that we could do this dramatic display on the outside and then do one on the inside as well. But it was really nice to be able to find the spot, to realize that original vision, that people would be walking and then they would come and read about these great people. So this is actually not staged. This somebody was reading the panel, and someone captured a picture of it for us. But this stayed up all summer long. I should say on the library, it stayed up for about 6 weeks. Next slide. So we were also lucky enough to have the mayor join us on May 1st for the opening of the Older Americans Month. And we had all of the narrators there sharing their stories. And then, of course, the mayor joined us and thanked them and told us a little bit about what her priorities were for older adults. And it was a packed house. I think because the mayor was there, they didn't kick us out for violating the fire hazards. But anyway, it was a fantastic afternoon. And then, next slide, we followed up that with a whole program lasting slightly more than the Older Americans Month of May. We went into June, and we passed out this flyer, and we really tried to balance the types of programs. We wanted people who had lived in the neighborhood for a long time in order to be able to come together and share information about the neighborhood and what they had seen. And then we also did some things like on scams and on our neighborhood hospital, Sibley. What we learned from this was amazing, in that people really do want to get together and talk about, reminisce, but also talk about important things, not related to aging, but just on educational issues where it's fun to come together and sort of have a social event. And so that has really led us to continue a different speaker series in a different way. Next slide. So what happened? We did measure our website results, and we had a pretty hefty increase over the period of time that we were there. Our volunteer inquiries also rose. And it's hard to say how our brand awareness increased, but it really did. And I had some, experiences when I was going later to solicit some auction items for our online auction. And some of the local businesses said to me, "Oh, you're the ones that put the big photos on the library." Or when I went to go talk to a new member, they would recognize that we had done that at the library too. Interestingly enough, it was rather easy to quantify the donations, but we did have a 25% increase in donations in 25 over 24. And we timed the mailing of our our annual report, which we call an impact report. We tied that specifically to once the library displays were up. And without asking, we also received some generous donations for that. We then finally received another grant from DC Humanities, so we're now getting additional oral histories, and we're hoping that we will be able to very soon have the inside library display that I showed you in each of the senior wellness centers sometime this year. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Frank. And this project, I'll tell you, is just personally very close to my heart, having worked on a program called Tell Me Your Story, Give Me a Voice. And what you've been able to accomplish here, it's wonderful to behold. So thank you for sharing it, and looking to see if there are any questions now. And just to remind you that there will be an opportunity that we'll rearrange with Frank to be able to have a more in-depth conversation later. So one question is about how much did this project cost?
So the funding for this piece of it, the initial funding, let me tell you, that we received from Humanities DC to collect the 8 oral interviews was $8,000. And then this one for the exhibits was $12,000, and we probably spent 20
Okay.
because of the amount of time, and we made it much broader. They only wanted one. They only required one exhibit, but we couldn't give up the second exhibit when we had that as a possibility. So we self-funded that.
Understood. Thank you. And any other questions? I do see congratulations shared in the chat for you, Frank, from Leading Age. So
Great.
please do see that.
I have a question.
Arkia?
This is our
Please go ahead.
This is a beautiful project. I love it. In our village, we're doing something sort of similar with college students in storytelling, one-on-one storytelling. So this gave me, you're just like the gift that keeps on giving. Gave me more ideas. I love the public art. I would call it public art. You know, using the school, and this is just beautiful. But I wanted to know, how long did it take to do like the oral interviews?
Man, they're tough to do because the scheduling is really challenging. Making sure the weather's good and people feel good, and by the way, we actually went for some folks that were founders that we knew. Time was kind of limited, and so one of those people is no longer with us.
Wow.
So there was a sense of urgency to do that. But the first project took probably 10 months to complete 8 interviews. And Humanities DC has some real specific requirements on how you have to format the transcripts, and they actually live in the People's Archive at the main library. So you have to meet all those requirements. So it takes a while.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Other questions? And I may not see your hand, so do feel free to speak up. And not seeing any more questions at this time. What Arkia brought forward, and I know there are people associated with my home village where you may have done elements of a project like this, and it does not need necessarily to be as extensive as Cleveland and Woodley Park were able to put together. And I'm sure that if you come to a more in-depth session, to be able to talk with other village leaders about what might best fit for your village. But the idea of being able to have people have a voice to tell their story, what it contributes to community, what it contributes to have your story heard, is just of extraordinary benefit at all levels. So please watch for this opportunity. And Lori, I see that you've been able to join us. And if we could now turn to you, this is a pretty magical program that you've brought together. If you could talk to us about your Care Navigator program. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Layla. And wow, hard to follow up those really wonderful programs. It's fantastic. So our Care Navigator program, we sort of came up with it whole cloth, and the question that sort of animated it from the beginning was, how can Valley Village provide more robust support to members? We have these various things that we do. We educate people, we volunteer to help each other when somebody's in a crisis, and so on. We socialize, but how can we provide more direct support to helping people stay in their homes as they age? Next slide, please. So continuing on that theme, so we can't provide direct services such as healthcare or case management. We just thinking this whole thing through, we realized we can't do that. And we know all the things that we're already doing for people, but we know that that maze of our healthcare system becomes more challenging as we age. We have more little problems. We may have more specialists and doctors. We may find it difficult to deal with the technology required to deal with healthcare these days, and so on. So everything from understanding the system to establishing end-of-life preferences. How can we be really solid about that, as solid as possible? So can we address that? That's what we came up with. Next slide, please. So as we developed the role description and budget. And this was one board member who sort of ran with this and wrote it all up, did a great job. I'm a real fan of one person drafting the original draft of something and then called for input from others. And so a group of people had input on this, and we decided to call the role Care Navigator. Then we pitched it to our members during our annual end-of-year fundraising campaign, and we received an excellent response. And this was before we had even made any steps toward hiring. We hadn't put out the job description or role description yet, anything like that, but it was coming together. And so we were able to actually express the idea to our members, and they responded very generously. So that was very encouraging. The Care Support Committee, we had established that before we were sure about the Care Navigator. So our Care Support Committee is a group of retired health professionals that is thinking about how we can better support our members' resilience. And so that was in place. And that turned out to be a good thing. They work very closely with the Care Navigator, support each other, and brainstorm, sounding board, the whole thing. And then last of all, the secure online portal, we realized that we needed to upgrade our technology a bit to allow for this. And this is just a place to store the information we gather so that if there's a new person that comes into role, we don't need to go back and gather that information all over again, and we can refer to it. It can validate our visits and so on. But we also learned that since we're not a healthcare provider, we don't need to be HIPAA compliant. So that took some pressure off of us. Next. So the concept was evolving, and what we want our Care Navigator to do was to become acquainted with our members, with each of our members, and to know what are their general health needs, social needs, that kind of thing. What is their vision for aging, for the end of their life, and so on? What is their setting? What kind of place do they live in? And is it going to work to continue to live there as they become frail? And what is their support that they have? What kind of support do they have from their family and in the local area? So just getting to know them in this way. So this is what we wanted to know about each member. We also said that confidentiality is absolute, that we needed to be sure to keep confidence on everything that they tell us. And we wanted to be very clear that we're not providing direct services, clear with the membership, clear with the Care Navigator that we would contract with. Communication skills are clearly essential. Listening, sympathy, articulating options, and so on need to be able to be done at a very high level. And then keeping records, again, that online portal. is essential. And finally, we could only do this on a part-time basis just because of finances, and that this would be a contracted staff member, not a direct employee. And finally, we decided that we wanted this to be a free service to all members. So we tossed around different ideas that we would charge members a certain amount, the amount that it actually costs us to contract with this person for each visit. That was one idea. Another idea was that we would charge them a fraction of that amount, maybe 35 or 40% of that amount, and ask them to give more if they could. Actually, each member that was having a visit to give more as they could. But in the end, we decided to make it free so that it was easy for anybody to say, yes, come and visit me. Next slide, please. So who we hired? In the end, we hired a certified death doula. This is the professional background. She's served the community in this role for several years. And so she has a good experience set in this area. And it was really excellent for her role as the care navigator. So our care navigator role differs from that of a death doula, but there's a lot of overlap. She knows a lot of the challenges that come with aging. She understands end-of-life documents quite well and planning quite well. And of course, the value of listening. And she's very comfortable with older adults. So these things all made her a good person for our role. We thought about social workers. That would have been a good option. A nurse, something like that. At one point, somebody mentioned that having a nurse in place might make it harder to sort of keep the line straight between whether we're giving direct services or not, because it's so easy if you have all those healthcare skills to extend them to somebody who needs them. So that was one thought that we had about, who we were looking for. Next slide. Process. So what we want the care navigator to do is to reach out to arrange a meeting with every member, reach out to every member to arrange a meeting in their house or elsewhere if they don't want to meet in their house. So part of that is about getting to know their setting, to be able to actually see their house. And getting to know them, their health needs, again, their local support, their family circumstances. Do they have family here or do they have family elsewhere? Is their family supportive or is their family difficult? There are so many variations on family relationships and so on, and we wanted to, and that's an important thing to understand about people as they age. Their personality, their activities, what are they doing these days? And of course, their spiritual orientation will always have an impact on how they want to age, what their end-of-life preferences are, their burial preference, or their disposal of body preferences, and so on. So this is all part of the process as we begin to conceive of it. Next slide. And then, so we want the care navigator to go into each house and have discussions about all these things. So when we say end-of-life documents, we mean the advance directive, will, power of attorney, and medical power of attorney. And then also burial plans. And as I mentioned, the family situation. And then plans for frailty. So everybody has their own, we all envision how we're going to age differently. we all envision differently how we're going to age. Let me say it like that. So, and some of us are very realistic about it. Some of us are not very realistic about it. And of course, when it comes to it, we may have a long period of frailty, or we may have no frailty, and our end of life might come before that. But it's important to plan for it, no matter what. Just like we have to plan for the end of life. And so, what is their vision for when they become frail? And forgive that term, I know it's not always the proper term, but what are their options for increased care? Will their home support them? Can they continue to live in their home as they become frail, and so on? Do they have a need for help right now? It's another thing we wanted to know. And as I said, what is the home setting like? Does it need modification to be accessible if they become somewhat incapacitated? Is it clean? Is it cluttered? Are there hazards? Looking at all those things and thinking through how they'll be able to age in their home. And of course, last but not least, record this information in our online portal. Next slide. And then we learned a few lessons along the way. We learned that members, there are sort of holes in their understanding about emergency procedures. So what to expect at the emergency room or the emergency department when they go in, what to expect if they call an ambulance, in the ambulance, what to expect there, what to expect when they call 911. And this became very obvious to our care navigator, who then worked with with the care team, and they shared out some research projects and on all these different aspects of emergency calls, and did a program for Valley Village on this, which was really excellent. So this was, one way that we learned something that can benefit the membership as a whole by talking to members separately. Another thing, members could use more clarity on end-of-life documents. So understanding the language in end-of-life documents, how do those end-of-life documents all fit together, and so on. Another thing, knowing our limits. This is about our limits on discussing medical and legal aspects. So we can talk these things over, the medical and legal aspects of the end-of-life documents and about our health needs and so on, but we cannot give medical advice or legal advice. And our care navigator has to be very clear about where the line is. And last of all here, the focus on the prescribed topics. So we have these things that we want the care navigator to talk about. Sometimes you visit somebody and they want to talk about everything else. And so that was just a small hurdle, is just to figure out how to keep the subject in place and in focus during those conversations. And next slide. And then more lessons learned. So the value of an objective listener. An objective listener gives so much, and especially when we're talking about the very tender topics and sometimes fraught topics of end of life, illness, and so on, wills, and so on. So not if you can talk with someone besides a family member, it can be very advantageous. Family members can have very intense emotional involvement, and perhaps a vested interest in the decisions you're making. So this opportunity to talk with our care navigator is means a lot to our members. We also learned that some of our members would benefit from more socialization. And so we were so happy to see the Virginia Villages collective grant for this more socialization programs. It just fit right in. And then we have, we've seen that the collaboration among groups within our village. So I'm talking about the Care Navigator collaborating with our Just One Call group, which provides, which organizes the services from one person to another within the village, and with our education committee. So if we have someone who has a complicated situation and the Care Navigator is now working with them, and the Care Navigator then starts to work with the coordinator of the Just One Call, the services that they get can be more aligned to what they need. And that's really strengthened our support for members. And then also the Care Navigator sometimes works with the Education Committee in terms of passing on information about what our members may need to learn more about in terms of end-of-life issues. And then finally, we learned that we have some great options in Harrisonburg for elder care. We have a very active and dynamic AAA agency called Valley Program for Aging Services. And then we also have an active local in-home caregiving network. And so these things also make it easier for people to get the help they need, stay in their home as long as they wish to. And I think that's all I've got for you folks.
Thank you so much, Lori. I was impressed when I first heard about this and when Annette shared, and I think for many of us here with our villages, putting something like this together and what it could contribute to the well-being of our members and to the well-being of members' families as well, because this really stretches beyond the individual village member. I'd like to open up for questions for Lori before I step forward with one. Please, if I don't see your hand, please go ahead and speak up. Clarine, please go ahead.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm a Cheverly Village volunteer on the Member Services Committee. And of course, this addresses a really big need, especially when somebody starts to go into a crisis or has a fall that you think is just going to be short-lived, and it turns out to be much more than that, and so on. But I'm curious, and the idea of a care navigator sounds wonderful. How many clients or patients, you don't want to call them patients, I'm sorry, can somebody cover adequately, or are you finding this is a full-time position you're paying for? Or
no, it isn't a full-time.
part-time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Clary. And then, yeah. So, no, we can't afford to support a full-time care navigator. She works about 0.2 full FTE. So it's probably about 6 hours a week. And so it's just been, she has covered, so for the first, she started in September 2024. So it's been about 16 months. And in the first year, she met with over 90% of our village. And we have about 150 members, or 145, something like that. And yeah, so it was just, she was given actually a list at the outset of the year that that sort of mentioned some people who could use some attention sooner than maybe other people. And then she just sort of slogged through the list and made those arrangements, list of members, made arrangements with people to meet with them. And we're talking about meetings that would last up to 90 minutes. That was generally the outside edge of what we expected, and often were shorter. So we're not talking about anything lengthy, but of course, now that she's done with the first year and she has a sense of maybe who needs more attention, and we're looking at some new projects, and I should have included this in my report, but so basically she's visiting some of our more vulnerable members more often, keeping closer tabs on them. And we're starting a new companionship program where we will enroll members and orient them to give them a little orientation to just visit with our members, vulnerable members. And when we say vulnerable, we mean people that no longer drive, or people that have a really hard time getting out for one reason or another. Or people who are more delicate health-wise. So to visit with them on a regular basis, not a long visit, hour long, and it might involve any number of things like taking a short walk or playing a little game or having tea, depending on what the member likes to do, the vulnerable member likes to do. So, some things are growing out of this, and yeah, it's exciting.
If I could just add,
yes, please.
I think one of the things that helps to make it manageable for us is that our member population, by and large, is fairly independent still and has good support networks in our local community, church, family. That's one of the characteristics of our local community here. So we don't have that many people in our membership that really need a lot of outside support other than family and church. And so if that changes, and as our people get older, then doing it in a quarter time becomes a lot more difficult.
Thank you for that. I think we all have to remember that a lot of our members are independent, so it's not like every member gets these visits. So thank you.
Thank you for that question, Clarine. Thank you for stepping in, Rich. And Lori, there's one other question, and we're coming up on time, but I wanted to get to the one other question that we have. Oh, actually two. Just how many members did the Care Navigator meet in total? And were there multiple visits to a member? You may not have all those answers.
I don't have all those answers, but
yeah.
If it's over 90%, then it is.
Oh, that's right. You did answer that.
I did say over 90%. So
and were there multiple visits for some members?
Yeah, and for some members, it was more than one visit. Yes.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And another question that, I look at Clarine, we could have asked this question as well. Have family members participated in these meetings?
Great question. Yes, family members may participate if requested, and that's happened once. So we have one member, and it wasn't really, it isn't a question that our Care Navigator asks at the outset. She asks if she can come visit. And I don't know if she should or shouldn't. That's a question right there. But so there was one member whose children wanted to meet with us too. She had a good visit with our Care Navigator, and then her children wanted to participate also. So the Care Navigator came a second time, and her two daughters participated in that meeting.
That's very good to hear.
Yeah.
And I know that there'll be other questions. And then as we carry this conversation back to your villages, please keep in touch, because we're pulling and twisting people's arms for all three villages to be able to meet with you, work with you to see how this might be able to be tailored to your village's needs and to the resources that you can bring to bear, because fully aware that we have different types of villages with different budgets, staff, volunteers, all of that. So thank you very much, Lori. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Arkia. Very, very appreciative. And Kim, if you could take us to our closing slide, because I do want to honor your time. What I appreciate is everybody stuck with, and that's beautiful to behold. So we're excited, as Wave, where we hope to go this next year, the steps that we're taking, the relationships that we're building, and we can only do that with your support. So please stay in touch. We're going to try to do a better job of staying in touch with you. One of the things that we're looking forward to that you need to hear is to share more of your stories in a way that the broader community outside of villages, similar to what one of the Founders Awards did here, understands the village movement better, supports the expansion of the village movement better, and really gives credit to what your villages are doing in all the ways to make it so that we can age well, stay in our homes, and age well in our communities. So thank you. With that, just turning to other board members, is there anything monumental that I am forgetting to share before we go ahead and close? So not hearing anything at the time. And thank you all. And I think that you will be hearing from us this next week in an email with more information on our new board members and some of the things coming up in the near future. So be well. Shovel carefully. So.